Leaders of a religious commune near Waco are denying allegations they ministered to a child molester rather than report him to police. Tonight, new allegations against Homestead Heritage.
Church leaders allegedly encouraging parents to brutally discipline their children. Our Brett Shipp has spent the past 5 months interviewing former members, and he joins us now with more on that. Brett?
Gloria and John, last night we told you about 5 convicted pedophiles connected to the Homestead Heritage Church near Waco. Tonight, what some say is another threat, a pact between church leaders and parents to brutally discipline their children. An allegation church leaders deny. So what really happens at Homestead? Tonight News 8 investigates. Homestead Heritage, a 1,000-member congregation located on a 500-acre gated commune north of Waco, where God and family come first. But the wholesome, carefree appearances portrayed on publicity videos, according to some who have left, is a facade, masking a quiet culture of abuse.
I remember him being bruised from horribly.
I think that there were some bruises and some welts at the time.
My dad was just being extreme on punishment, just physical violence.
Story after story of physical abuse told to News 8 by former Homestead members who say they left when conditions became intolerable. Isaac Alexander says his family was forced out of the church, but only after a relative alerted Child Protective Services of his father's ongoing physical abuse.
Paddles, belts, the worst would be like fresh little peach tree branches or like fishing poles, you know, the real skinny part. That.
Would he leave marks?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking you couldn't sit down for a couple of days, barely. Absolutely.
This former member, the victim of sexual abuse while at Homestead, recalls similar beatings at the hands of her father.
You'd get beat with a peach tree switch where you couldn't sit down for days. You'd have bruises, whelps. You get sent to your room for a week, not be able to come out.
Former member Jeremy Crow says he will never forget the night his parents beat his 5-year-old brother.
One would beat him till they couldn't beat him anymore. They couldn't raise their hand, and the other one would take over, and they would beat him. And we could hear him screaming for quite a while, and then the screaming stopped, and we would hear him say, say thank you. And then it would start over again.
While Crow's mother denies the severity of what her son described, she did say they spanked too hard and for things that we shouldn't have, often using a peach or other kind of switch. Crow's mother recalls how the men at Homestead were conditioned to exercise dominance. Quote, the more forceful he could be in disciplining his children and his wife, even in public, the more he showed his authority. Others we talked to say harsh discipline is embedded in the doctrine of Homestead Heritage founder and leader Blair Adams.
Because it's the Spirit of God in the church, amen, amen, that is speaking to his people to convict them of sin, of righteousness, and of judgment, amen.
In the 1980s, Adams authored Who Owns the Children?, a 600-page treatise attacking government intrusion on parental rights. In it, Adams asserts that God specifically tells us to use force in disciplining our children. Spanking a child, he writes, will deliver his soul from hell.
It was the increasing level of harshness of ministry and discipline toward the young people.
Bob and Catherine Beechner say they left Homestead 10 years ago after Adams' authority became too punitive toward children, including their 14-year-old son.
It became increasingly harsh, increasingly intimidating and coercive, to the point that our own son, we saw him slipping away. He had planned to run away.
Mark Carrion, one of the original members, says he left Homestead 11 years ago.
There was actually meetings instructing you on how to beat your kids without leaving marks, and encouraging you to, break the will of kids when they're young.
Blair Adams and church elders have declined our repeated requests for an interview. Homestead officials did issue this statement, quote, "For our nearly 40-year history, our church ministry has always condemned and never tolerated any physical, psychological, mental, emotional, or sexual abuse of anyone, much less abuse of children. Criminal behavior of any kind is expressly forbidden." But those words ring hollow for many who escaped what they say is a traumatic secret behind the innocent eyes of those who suffer.
I think that's an important thing. That's why I'm talking to you today. Is I think that no one should allow their kids to go through a social experiment like that, if you will, like where it's, you know, it's this perfect community from the outside, but there's so much darkness on the inside.
Also tonight, a National Sexual Abuse Survivors Network is calling for action. They're asking McLennan County authorities to open a criminal investigation into allegations church leaders failed to report sex crimes against children. Again, they are allegations that Homestead denies. A full written response to our stories from Homestead and our reply to it can be found on our website at WFAA.com. Brett Shipp, Channel 8 News.